And then one of these guys looks out the door and start asking for our passports. And he's like, where do you got this from? And I'm like, well, from the consulate. And he's like, no, I know what you're doing. These are fake. Who are you guys really? Right next to the kitchen, I managed to see a shovel that is all full of like dirt and blood. I saw a knife, like a man-made, handmade knife in the kitchen.
Right.
And I grabbed it, put it in my back pocket, and I'm like, dude, I mean, it might be helpful.
What's up, everybody? We are here in Culiacan, Sinaloa, with Luis Chaparro, the #1 narco journalist, but we'll call him specializing in covering the narcos down here in Mexico and throughout Latin America. Follow him on YouTube, at Luis Chaparro. He is super thorough, so all of like the surface level stuff that we give you, he goes into detail, and it's fascinating. So we've been kicking it, hanging out for the last couple of days, dude. Partying, trying to follow, trying to track down these fucking drug dealers, man.
Yes, man. Thank you.
It's not been easy, dude.
Thank you, especially for actually saying Chaparro well. It's a hard one.
I don't speak very good Spanish, but I roll the R's, and so it tricks people.
Well, this couple of days, you've been speaking like good Spanish.
I've been
around these guys.
Bro. I've been hanging in there. Yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
They've been busting my balls. I've been getting made fun of by high-level drug dealers. They've really been shitting on me, but I like it.
Yeah, you've been doing that, man. But apparently they're cool with it,
Yeah. I like the spirit of these guys are very good. Like these are really, these guys we've been talking to these last couple of days. There's nothing to them. This is a farm town. This is a farm town, a ranch town that got money.
Yes,
you know
definitely.
What I mean?
Yes.
Like these guys were out in the boonies. They're talking about driving four-wheelers and shooting guns.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'd be doing that anyways, even without drug money.
What's up, everybody? Let's take a minute to thank our amazing new sponsor, AG1 by Athletic Greens. Guys, if you're like me and you're trying to get control of your health, but you can't keep up with the routine of taking all of these different vitamin pills every day, look no further than AG1. AG1 is a powder nutritional drink, and one of those pouches can give you 75 different vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. All you have to do is open up the pouch, pour the powder into ice cold water, drink it. It tastes great, by the way. And there you go. You don't have to take any more vitamins. Forget about all that stuff. You can throw it out. All you need is AG1. You guys, if you're looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is go over to athleticgreens.com and use the promo code CONNECT. That is athleticgreens.com/connect. Support them because they support the show and take control over your health. All right, let's get back into the show.
This city feels pretty much like a campestre. Do you know what campestre is?
No.
It's country club, like pretty much like country club, right? It's like, it's a nice city where your kids can just mess around and have fun and do bullshit. They won't get in trouble because the parents are, pretty much in charge.
Right, of course. Yeah, I was saying like this feels like such an insular world.
Yeah.
And it's safer than probably one of the safest cities in Mexico.
Yes.
In terms of like there's not a lot of homeless people. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of street crime. Everybody stays in line. You know?
Exactly.
It's a stronghold. It's an argument for why you want a strong cartel.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes. I mean, this city specifically is surrounded by mountains, and those mountains are pretty much filled with the sort of guys that we were with last night.
Right. So it's almost like we're surrounded and the city is held hostage, if you want to use that word, by the narcos because they dominate the mountains over here, and then to the west of us is the ocean.
Yes.
What's up?
That's the beer.
Oh, the beer. This is a perfect embodiment of our week right here. We have the producers bringing us tecates, room service. Dude, when you have money, Mexico fucking rules.
Yes,
you do anything you want to when you have. It's really like the ideal way to live is to have U.S. dollars and spend them in Mexico.
Tecate. You need to sponsor this channel because
I know Tecate's not giving us any money, dude. Should we turn it around? There's no kind of we won't get dinged for showing the brand, will we?
Hey guys, today's episode is brought to you by Mood, an online CBD and Delta-8 dispensary. Do you live in a state where cannabis is still illegal? Don't worry, Mood has you covered. Mood will ship any Delta-8 or Delta-9 product to your door, completely discreet and totally legal. These guys have an amazing assortment of Delta-8 and Delta-9 products, just like any regular dispensary, that include gummies, edibles, pre-rolls, flour, vapes. Right now, Mood is offering our viewers a free 5-count pack of gummies if you use promo code CONNECTFREE at checkout. On top of that, you can get anything on their website for 20% off by using the promo code CONNECT20 at checkout. That's CONNECT20 at checkout for 20% off of anything in their online store. These guys are amazing. Delta-8 and Delta-9 get you fucked up just like regular weed, but it's completely legal. Support them because they support us. All right, let's get back into it.
Yeah, I guess we'll just talk about what happened last night. So we were out through the contact that we've been working with for the past couple of days. He brought us out to meet some of the bodyguards, or what we were told is like an elite security team for El Mayo Zambada, the most wanted drug trafficker in the world. Yet we show up and these motherfuckers are like 21 years old.
Yes.
Half of them got braces on their teeth.
Yeah.
They're wearing sandals with shorts. Ew. Big faux pas. It's wild to me. Like, why are there not grown men guarding this guy?
What I think it's like you start early here, and those guys might be family of some of the most trusted men of Mayo Zambada. That's why they're there. And I didn't know this until this morning when I started calling contacts here, like where exactly we're yesterday, last night, right? And what they told me is like you went way too high up in the ladder, you know, like that you were like in the first inner circle of Mayo Zambada. So it's very probable that he was actually around. Like, pretty close to us. If you have to go, you know, like in the second, third, or fourth tier, maybe you'll get like older people dressed like more tactical, you know, like all that stuff that they're actually, I mean, more prone to get killed, but also more prone to fuck up and have someone, you know, like enter that circle. So.
Right. So if we could have got better information, you think if we went to the outer circles, the outer tiers of his security team? Yes.
Interesting. Yes, definitely, because that would have been way easier to have them talk to us and be more open. These guys have no need. These guys couldn't give any fuck. Their only job is like, we cannot break the trust of El Señor del Sombrero, right? And we are already sort of like risking that by having these guys here in the middle of a fucking birthday, you know?
So that's interesting. So the guy's got like 4 different security levels, the closer you could physically get to him. So it's actually the closer you are to him, the safer you are, because an enemy or the government would have to get through like 3 or 4 other armed, wings of the security team, right?
Yes. If you remember, they one of those guys was he was carrying like 6, 7 different two-way radios.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And each one of them was a circle, right? So
That's interesting.
Dude,
that guy had literally like 8 walkie-talkies on him. Wow. So we're talking like. So do they actually make the least? Because wouldn't the guys with the more dangerous job on the front lines get paid more?
No, not at all. These guys are getting like the dog, you know, like these guys are getting paid well. They're hanging out with like luxury cars around.
Right. Interesting. So, but why do grown men not want those jobs?
Probably because grown men are not, what I think, and this is what I think, I don't know this for sure, but what I think is like older men will grow up with, like El Mayo, knowing El Mayo. Yeah. But imagine, I don't know, you and I grew up together. I wouldn't really hire you to work with me. I will give you like a better position and I'll just like take care of my security. But if you want your kid to start off in the organization, I will tell you, hey man, have one of your kids work with me. Like, you know, like I trust you. Of course, I'm going to trust your kid. Let's bring him up by being on my tightest security team. And in Sinaloa, the organization itself, you start pretty early. You know, you start when you're 12, 13, 14 years old. So.
And so he has a getaway plan. Like there's always I assume there's like a contingency plan. So say the Marines do go crazy and come in and try to, raid and penetrate the security layers. Do they have somewhere like, would they speed off to El Mayo, wherever he is, whatever house he's at, and say, we got to go? And then when they have like a getaway plan?
So if that were to happen, that you will definitely be watching a movie, man. Like that's, and it's not because it's not gonna happen. But if that were to happen, it's because it was arranged for it to happen like that.
Right.
There is no way that this is gonna be like raided by surprise.
Right.
Maybe it's not. I mean, he's useless to the U.S. government. They have no use. I mean, if that comes, like if that point comes, he's like, you know what? He's useless to us. Let's just grab him. But we're gonna let him know, like, hey man, your time is over, and that's it. Let's just put up a show.
So somebody for the DEA would contact El Mayo through like an intermediary and be like, hey, you're done?
You're done, man. Like, I mean, of course, that's the only reason why El Mayo is still out there. We don't know any fucking photo of him other than that. I don't know. It's
the
like
one
an 80s,
the old one, yeah, on Wikipedia.
We don't know. We don't really know how he looks right now or where he is. Well, we sort of like knew from last night.
Right.
But imagine, like, I'm pretty sure that we're not the only ones who actually know where he is.
Right.
And yes, what they told me also this morning was that he has like 8 or 7 different security rings. We were at his first security ring, and the other people taking care of his security is just like 2 other men moving with him, like physically with him.
Right.
Everywhere, like they sleep with them, they eat with them. So we were like pretty close. Why I think he has these security rings is first for a fuck up from the police. Let's say you're military and you start surveilling a group of Sicarios and you go like deep and deep and deep, and you didn't know that it was actually a Mayo, and you fuck up and you're like, fuck, I'm in the middle of something.
Right.
I didn't even know. That's gonna be uncomfortable for both sides, and who's gonna get killed, and that's not gonna be a Mayo.
Right.
And the other reason is because there is somewhat of an infight between the Sinaloa Cartel, but also between different cartels like Cartel Jalisco. Right?
Yeah, right. So why is El Mayo useful right now to the American government?
Again, this is something I don't know for a fact. This is something I think.
Sure.
And I think is useful because he's the voucher for the war against drugs, right? Like without someone like El Mayo Zambada, the war against drugs wouldn't make any sense. It doesn't really make any sense, right?
Of course not.
It's not working. We all know that. But they need a pretext, right? Like they need someone to blame and say like, yeah, the other guy was El Chapo. He's in jail. We cannot get access to him.
You need a figurehead. You need an enemy.
Yeah, exactly. Without him, this is not working. And he's probably also serving a different purpose, like destabilizing this country, like serving U.S. agenda in Mexico in terms of security, in terms of drug trade, in terms of like destabilizing the financial institutions.
Right. So what I still don't understand completely is the way that the Sinaloa Cartel in Culiacan operates, right? So there's two factions. We have the Mayitos, those that are loyal to El Mayo, right? El Mayo Zambada. And they basically control everything but the city, it seems like. They have all the kitchens and the meth and the fentanyl cooks, the mountains surrounding it. They have the border towns, the plazas, right? In the north that manage the flow of drugs into the U.S.
Yeah, that's Los Mayos, right?
Yes, exactly. But then you have the Chapitos, which basically Mayo has said, go ahead and take Culiacan. So you have basically everything under that, selling drugs and laundering money in the city. How does that look? But then we hear that there's 12 families that basically operate 12 major, we'll call them drug trafficking organizations within Culiacan. So how does that relate to Chapito? Or what do you call it? What's his name?
Los Chapitos.
Yeah, exactly.
They pledge to either. They're working with and for either. The two of them. So these families, they exist, and their families, they're not proper like criminal organizations. Because they are not an organization. They're a family. Some of them are laundering money. Some of them are like head of Sicarios, or bringing in guns, or actually exporting drugs as well, transporting and all that stuff. Right. But they do have to serve one of these two factions.
So
right?
does that, and how does that look? Is it like a mafia kick up, right? You kick up to the boss, so every large drug shipment that is successful, you have to kick a percentage up to the boss?
Exactly. That's the way it is, yes.
Okay, gotcha. You know, it just seems like I don't know, and maybe I'm out of line here. It just seems too big to be as organized as they make it out to be in the news. Am I wrong about that? Am I right about that? It seems like it's a bunch of independent operators that from years back have capital, right? Like you just amass enough money and power to where you grow to just be able to kind of operate and do whatever you want. But then there's just this one symbolic leader, two symbolic leaders that you kick up to every month.
Yeah.
Am I wrong about that? Am I onto something there?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And that's the one thing that a lot of people don't really get. Like the Sinaloa Cartel doesn't exist anymore, and it hasn't existed like from like 10 years back, you know?
Right.
It used to be a vertical organization. That used to be like the Sinaloa Cartel with one boss, you know, and another one who was El Mayo.
Right.
El Chapo was like sort of like serving his way.
He was like the guy under him.
Yeah. And then would you have like all the Sicarios, or what we call like managers and sellers and transporters.
Right.
And all of those guys were under a payroll, right? Like they were working for the cartel.
Yeah. It was a legitimate corporation. Or not a legitimate, of course, but it was it was structured basically as a real corporation where everybody's on salary and all of the profits go back to, you know, the owners.
The owners, yes. But like,
how did that end?
I think it started with the financial evolution of the world. You know, like the freelance kind of like work didn't really exist, was not as popular in the world before, and now everybody's a fucking freelance. You know?
Yes, sure.
It's really hard to get a salary right now.
Right.
You have to serve certain, you know, like role within an organization to have a salary. That's the same way.
But how did the hierarchy break up within the Sinaloans? Because you know the Nuevo Jalisco is much more hierarchical. They structure their shit, I believe, according to you, a little more corporatized than Sinaloa. So what happened a decade ago that basically forced Sinaloa to get rid of the hierarchical structure?
I think first they started losing money on some of their main revenues, like weed, right?
Right.
So it started off with what they called burreros, the food transporters, right? The mules.
Right.
So they were payroll. All the time. But then it was like, man, I can't keep paying you a salary. It's not, like profitable.
It's not profitable enough.
So this is what we're going to do. 2 out of the 10 bricks you're carrying are going to be yours for you to sell, for you to make money, and I'm going to keep the rest of the 8 bricks. So that's how we actually started. Like, okay, so those guys don't work for us anymore. The second thing is like the Sinaloa Cartel, they used to have people on their payroll on the U.S. side, right? In the U.S. cities, they will be in charge of receiving the product, storing the product, and distributing the product around the U.S.
Right, and then take the money and ship it back.
And
were those guys on salary too?
Those guys were salary, of course. Yes. So yeah, you might have been working maybe on the last few years of that happening. You were buying from...
Well, I was picking up from guys who were freelancing.
Oh, well,
I was,
maybe that,
I believe the guy, I never got that deep with him, but, the Sinaloans who I were buying from absolutely were self-funded, or they had an investor from this side who put money into their large-scale weed grows in California. But this guy was definitely not on salary. He was paying his growers and his bud tenders.
Oh yeah,
salaries,
totally. Because that was like U.S. Product, right? Like that weed was actually from the U.S.
Yes, of course. But this guy definitely was not like taking orders from anybody.
Yeah, no, totally,
he was just maybe like you've said before. He was a guy from Sinaloa, probably had a ton of experience growing directly for the cartels for years.
Yeah,
and then decided to like try to strike it rich in the U.S. by setting up his own grow.
Exactly. Like
you know what I mean?
That myth about, like once you are in their cartel, you can't get out. Like it doesn't really apply anymore,
Right.
Those guys were actually for the cartel, it was actually better, right? Like you don't work for me anymore.
Right.
You're just a freelancer. I'm
Right.
gonna pay you like to move loads, but you're gonna
Right.
pay me in full the wholesale price. You know,
Right.
I'm gonna send you, I don't know, like 10 pounds of cocaine.
Yeah.
But instead of waiting for that to sell and that money to get back,
Right.
you're gonna pay me in cash the full. And then you're gonna make money out of it, so it's good
Right.
for both parts. You
Right.
know?
It really has tracked how the world has gone.
That's
We
what I'm
live in
saying.
a gig economy now. Everybody's a freelancer. Everybody is just taking gigs or
Yeah.
turning down gigs.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's the way the world works, the way the economy works has an impact, of course, in criminal organizations, because what are they all are about? It's money, right?
Yes.
So the ways that money moves in the world is going to have a direct impact into these guys. Now, the thing is, these organizations are really resilient. How many years it took to, like establish legal companies to move from, like we have salaries, we pay salaries, to we have a bunch of freelancers and collaborations, and and for the cartel, that happened immediately.
Right.
Same with the pandemic. When the pandemic started, they cut off all of their Mexican traffickers to the U.S.
Right.
Like people who were trafficking for them on a freelance basis
Right.
were mostly Mexican. You would see the newsletter, the news from CBP or like for Border Patrol.
Right.
And most of them were, we got a Mexican male on a pickup truck carrying like certain amount of trucks,
Right.
And right after the pandemic, it was all U.S. citizens. So
right.
They are using now exclusively U.S. citizens.
Wow, to mule the drugs across the border. And hey, I'm sure they love that because, no offense, but we've been here for about 3.5 days. They could give a shit about Americans, which is kind of cool, kind of callous, but at the same time, it's like, I asked the kid last night, I'm like, all gringos aren't bad. And he goes, well, no, I mean, if your money's good, you're good with us. Like they see this and it's just a dollar sign to them.
Yes, definitely.
Now, so basically, you've got 12 families in Culiacan. This is like Silicon Valley of dope dealing. This is where everything springs out of, not just the money in the organization, but the culture and the ideas, right? And they're always on the cutting edge of everything that's changing in the dope game.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
it was Chapo in Culiacan who came up with the idea for fentanyl.
Yes.
Right? Which, by the way, I had that question for you. Does the cartel have an opinion on the fentanyl and if they think that's damaging the cocaine market, right? Because that's still the biggest market is coke, because that's what most people do. Do they think that the fentanyl has kind of become this monster that they can't control, or do they just view it as another revenue source? And like the coke, people that buy coke will always buy it. Some will die. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I've been around fentanyl producers and like managers of the business for like several times here in Culiacan and in the outskirts of the city as well. And what I've heard is like they couldn't give less of a shit about like the effects of fentanyl. They just see a better revenue model, right? Because a break of what you need from a break of cocaine to get like a bunch of people high, it's like a full break, and it occupies like a larger space in a car. But how much fentanyl do you need? And it's super profitable. Like a super small quantity of pure fentanyl, you can do a lot with that. A lot of money with that.
Right.
So they love it. They're like, this is kind of cheap to us. This is like super easy to smuggle, and this is very, very profitable.
And they're pressing it in pills. That's like the main.
They're
way
doing
you
different
said?
things. Like they're mixing, and I know that for sure because I was in one of those labs. They're mixing heroin with fentanyl.
Right. So they are actively, consciously doing that.
Specifically with heroin here.
Right. Why? Why are they doing that?
Because this is what is fascinating. They do have like these, rapport in the streets. They listen to their clients, and the word goes all the way from the streets in the U.S. to the manufacturers in Mexico, in Sinaloa. So they found out like
customer surveys these people do.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
It's fucking crazy. Yeah. And what they learned is like, so apparently our heroin is not as strong, so we started selling less, and they're buying more fentanyl or more heroin, and that, I mean, stronger heroin, or so we need to do something. And they
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that.
So people in the street, like users of heroin,
It
started like complaining about like these heroin.
The potency, it's not as strong
it's
enough.
Weak now.
Gotcha.
Yes. So they started like.
Why would that have been? Just because its dealers are cutting it up too much?
And I think it's because like the market for fentanyl in the U.S. for opioids started like an illegal market, right? Compared with heroin, it's not the same.
Right. Oxy gets you a lot more fucked up when you snort it or smoke it than, some heroin.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Okay.
So that's what they heard. So they started like mixing heroin with fentanyl and getting like good comments from the street. And again, this is what the cartel says, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that this is the way it is.
Right.
This is just what they said.
Right.
How it happened.
Right.
So yes, that's one way to.
So do they get the bricks because they grow poppy here still?
Yes.
So do they control? They control the heroin pressing for the pure heroin and then have it shipped to Culiacan where it's diluted with, the bricks are diluted with fentanyl?
Yes.
Or what does that process look like?
They have like fields of poppy around the...
And by the way, where are those? Where are those fields?
Like
Okay,
really
gotcha.
high up on the mountains.
Right.
Maybe they could start up like... You could go to a field maybe like 4 hours drive from here.
Right.
So they're pretty high up.
Yeah.
Mountains. And then they have like producers, right?
Right.
Again, freelancers,
Freelancers, sure.
But they only have one client.
Yeah.
So it's like a
That's
freelance, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's like a retainer.
Yeah.
It's like you're a freelance, but you only work for me.
Sure.
So those producers bring what they call the la goma, the heroin.
Yep.
They mix it up with fentanyl in the city, in the outskirts of the city.
Yeah.
Well, that was happening until like maybe 3 years ago. And then they switched. Like we're going to move to smaller operations in the city to avoid getting hit, like big hits if the authorities raid us. And that's one way to, like smuggle fentanyl with heroin, right?
Okay.
The other one is pressing pills, fake Percocet pills, these blue
fake Percocets.
Mm-hmm,
gotcha.
Exactly, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the other way. Like I think that's the most popular. And the other is like pure fentanyl.
Right. Which is like the powder fentanyl.
The powder, yes.
Which is just insane that people would go straight to the fentanyl.
Yes.
You got to be a badass junkie to go straight to the thing that kills most people.
Yes.
And you're just like, I don't even want the diluted shit.
Yeah, but most of the guys who are actually buying pure fentanyl it's guys who are cutting heroin or cocaine with pure fentanyl in the U.S. So it's like U.S. dealers who are like buying pure fentanyl.
Of course. Mm-hmm. So do they ship any pure heroin anymore, or it's strictly everything is all the heroin is cut with fentanyl?
The big majority of what they ship it's mixed. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha. Okay, so cocaine. That's my favorite. It's everybody's favorite. I love it because it's such a simple product.
Yes.
There's no bullshit, right? And that's why I hate fentanyl, because it's fucking up the blow.
Mm-hmm.
Good coke makes it very difficult to overdose on. It's a product that middle-class people like, right? Mm-hmm. And it obviously can get away from people. You can turn into a junkie off coke, but it's just such a good, solid business. Mm-hmm. How does it work? Take me through the steps. I know that a lot of Mexicans are sending people now down to Colombia, but 12 families in Culiacan. Mm-hmm. How does that look? How do you organize a shipment of, I don't know, what's a normal shipment? What 2,000 bricks, a ton of coke? How does that financed? And what is the most common route to make it from Colombia to Culiacan?
Definitely. So let's start off with the suppliers, right? Like most of the suppliers either work for the Clan del Golfo, which is the biggest criminal organization in Colombia, which they call themselves a self-defense group.
Right, autodefensa, that's how they began. Los Urabeños, it's the same thing,
Los Urabeños,
right?
exactly. Yep. Those are the same guys. And the guerrilla properly, right? Like the
FARC, the ex-FARC.
Exactly,
right.
Former FARC organizations.
Right.
So those are the main suppliers for the Sinaloa Cartel. You need to have those contacts and know what you want to get from them. Saying that, they have different sorts of ways of cooking cocaine, and not all of it's actually pure, or it's actually a good product, right? So what the Sinaloa Cartel will do is we need to, keep up, like what is happening right now. The cocaine exports from Colombia is breaking records, like, right? It's an all-time high this year.
Yeah.
That means the price in Mexico either goes down or they start like moving a lot of cocaine in the US. You know,
Right.
like, it's like, let's keep moving it, because if we get overstock, we're gonna drop the price of cocaine.
Right.
So right now they are at a point where they're moving a lot of cocaine to the US. I don't know if that's gonna work. I'm pretty sure it will.
You mean the Colombians?
The Mexicans.
Right, sure.
Yes.
Well, how's that different from any other time?
Because, I mean, every other time you might not. I mean, if Colombia is producing that much cocaine.
They've just never, you're saying that the Mexicans have never moved more coke than they're moving right now.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
And that's because, like, Colombia is producing, like, a lot of cocaine. Everybody's in the business right now.
That's right.
And again, it's an economical or financial consequence of these days, right? Like of our recession,
right?
Of like what is happening financially in the world, right?
Right.
It's a way to sustain a lot of people, the raspachines, the guys who were like, like cut bricks, and prepare the leaves, all that stuff.
Well, it was also the deal that the FARC made. The FARC, for you guys that like history, they finally laid down their weapons. They had a ceasefire with the Colombian government after like 40 years. And one of the agreements had to do with coca leaf.
Yes.
Like they were going to basically allow them to produce it without intervention. Yeah, without basically, spraying the fields of the shit that they used to do with, DEA money. So that's another thing, is they're growing more coca than ever, too.
Yes, exactly. Also, this is happening when the new president of Colombia is actually talking about legalizing coke, right?
Right.
A way to like legalize basically cocaine production in the country.
Legalize production too?
Yeah, so that's the talk. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, honestly, but that's the way he wants to be portrayed.
Right.
So the amount of cocaine getting exported from Colombia is serving also a political purpose. Right. So it's a huge market in Colombia. Right. The Mexicans will go up there with the FARC or with the Urabeños. Right. And arrange a shipment.
Yeah,
I know
it's 1 ton, 2,200
Yes, exactly.
Bricks. That's a clean.
Exactly. Most of the times, like if that's the first time you work with that supplier, what you will do is just go out there, try the product, and say like, yeah, I like it. It's pretty cool. Let's do this. I'm gonna go back to Culiacan.
Right.
And if you manage to get me 1 ton of your product in Culiacan, but that's you. I'm not going to put my man to work on it. Right. If you manage to make it, that means you're serious, you're capable, and we're going to work together. Wow. If you don't, then I don't have to work with you. I don't have anything.
So the Mexicans have that kind of power now. It's like a buyer's market.
Yes.
Because the Colombians got to move all this coke that they're making. They need buyers.
And they don't own any route now. Right? The Colombians don't have any routes. The routes are controlled absolutely by Mexican cartels. Right. Not only the Sinaloa Cartel, but also the Cartel Jalisco, Cartel del Noroeste, the former Zetas, All those guys control the routes. And that's been happening for a while now.
Right. So think about that. And also they can, because a guy who's that diversified, I've got meth, fentanyl, heroin, weed internally. Like I'm still making money even if I don't import cocaine. So they tell, and that's a hard bargain to drive too. Yeah. Like you tell a Colombian guy, you got to get this load to me, and if the submarine gets caught, whatever happens, you're out your money.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
At one point, I remember being at a Lucerna, but not in Culiacan. Actually, in Mexicali.
Yeah, we're not there right now. Yeah. We're definitely not at the Lucerna in Culiacan. No. We have not been doing coke with these guys all week.
No. Take two.
Hold on, man. Here, give a little step. Yeah, there we go. You're good.
Yeah. So at that time, I was at a hotel in Mexicali. With one of the
Mexicali, right on the border,
on
the U.S. side or
the Mexican side,
right? Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Baja California,
right
with the border with Calexico, California. Right?
Rough town.
Yes, man, it's really rough. So I was with that guy. He's one of the let's call it managers for the business side of the organization, right? He's
Colombian or Mexican?
Mexican. Gotcha. He's not involved with any, Sicarios or anything like that. He's involved with specifically the business aspect.
That's right.
And I was doing an interview and I needed some access down there. So I came all the way to Culiacan and we flew together to Mexicali. Right. And we stayed at the same hotel. And he would just like walk out the pool, just like doing coke since 10 in the morning.
Yeah,
So it was one of those guys.
Right.
So I was at the restaurant ordering breakfast. and I saw these news on Twitter about a submarine getting caught in the shores of Mexico. I think it was Chiapas or Oaxaca. I can't remember. And I told him like, "Ooh, they just got a huge submarine. I think they had like a ton of cocaine." And he was like, "When?" And I'm like, I think it happened like 2 days ago." And he's like, "No shit." And he's like keeps thinking. He's like, "Were there like two black men in the submarine?" And he's like, "Yeah, two black guys and one white guy, all Colombians." And he's like, "Fuck, that was my fucking load." And he started like just making crazy calls. Everybody was like listening to him because he was like obviously speaking Spanish as a Sinaloense, which they talk pretty fast.
Yeah, you can tell. It's a very distinct kind of thing.
And he was openly talking like, "Se nos cayó el cargamento, la verga." You know, like our shipment got stuck.
Wow.
Ya no trabajamos con ellos a la verga. You know? We don't work anymore with them, you know?
Right.
And
So he lost, let's say it was a low, it was a ton, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole 2,000 bricks or something like that. It sounds like he was pissed because he had his money involved.
He had like half of his money.
Gotcha.
But the thing he was actually pretty pissed is, well, half of his money, but he already had promised that to his clients, right?
Right.
Because, I mean, even if it was a trial, there's no way you're gonna just like stash a ton of cocaine and say like, "Okay, now let's do the real shit," you know?
Right.
He had a client already.
You have a buyer set up.
Yeah, exactly.
Who would have his buyer been?
Someone in the U.S., like where most of the clients are.
But but that's so many bricks. I thought Culiacan was the buyer. I thought the Sinaloans were the buyer, and then they ship it up and mark it up.
Yeah, no, that's what I was telling you, that it changed, and they weren't freelance all the way.
Right.
They are not only middlemen, but they are the ones sitting at the center of the table of the business, right? They say who they want to work with. They set the price of the cocaine.
Right.
They set their own rules.
Right.
And at the same time, they say like, "I'm not going to risk my man going over to the U.S. and then waiting for all the coke, the bricks to sell, and then get that money back.
Right.
I'm just gonna find a client or a couple of clients, and I have this super good quality from Colombia that just arrived to Culiacan at this price. Do you want it or not? I can get it as close to you as the border of Tijuana or Mexicali, but from there, you're on your own. Just pay me in full, you know?
Now, who in America now is buying multi-hundred load shipments of Colombian bricks? Who has that capability?
Most of the guys buying are people that the organizations in the US work very differently. They are not organizations, right?
No.
It's a man with money, or let's call it like
can't be a woman.
A girl can be a woman.
No.
A group of investors.
Right.
You know?
But I'm talking about, are these black guys? Are these
all sorts.
Chicanos, right? Guys who have ties to the old country, like in LA?
All sorts, man. Like there's all sorts. Yes. They're called narcos gringos, right?
Yeah.
Those are the narcos gringos. They operate under a free market, you know, like a free trade market. So that way they cannot monopolize, you know, like they so you will never see a cartel in the US. Yeah. You know, like anymore. A man with a bunch of, you know, like armed people because that's their turf.
Doesn't happen anymore.
That's regulated by the authorities, you know, like the DA is like, yeah, by all means.
It's too obvious.
Get drugs.
Yeah, of course.
But I won't allow a monopolization, right?
Right.
So, and then the way they distribute the whole thing is through biker groups, you know, like Hells Angels, all this stuff. A lot of the gangs, Sureños, all of the Aztecas, all of those guys.
But a guy who's Colombian or a Sinaloan middleman who's got 2,000 bricks, certainly he's got a couple of buyers, right?
Yes.
Because 2,000 bricks at, what when they make it to the border, what's the average price? 18, 20?
Yeah, it should be like less than 20, yes.
So who has a 40 million bucks? Nobody's doing that. That's got to go to
several different
people.
Yeah,
it's probably got to go
and it's
10 different people.
And it's not on, you know, like on one deal, right? You store it and someone said like, just give me 10. Right. And other guy's like, give me 20. Right. And then eventually, like 6 months later.
So his job, this guy from Sinaloa, he's one of like, I guess he's like a plaza guy. Yeah. He's one of the plaza bosses. Yes. So is that coke stored in Culiacan or in Mexicali?
In Mexicali or Tijuana or like different borders. It's, you know, it's like what we call papa caliente, you know? It's,
what is that?
it's a hot potato.
Hot potato,
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
As like the longest you have the hot potato, the longest probability you have to lose. you
Right,
know?
of course.
So that's what they do. They go down to Colombia.
Yeah.
They say like, I need the hot potato. I'm just gonna hold it like super briefly,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna pass it on
Right.
as fast as I can,
Of
even if
course.
it's on by parts.
of
Like
course.
I'll chop it up and boom, 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 boom.
Now, say that load got intercepted. So you're with this guy that day by the pool.
Gotta get rid of my glasses.
Submarine got picked up, right? Got
Mhm.
caught. Semi-submersible, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because the submersibles are really expensive, I think. To
yeah,
run.
no, it was a lot.
What happens is nobody's getting whacked over that, right? Because it's a total accident, right?
Yeah.
Or am I wrong? Is somebody getting killed over that?
I don't think so, because I mean, if especially that one was out in the news, so it was like pretty clear that
Right.
it happened.
It
and
just
that's something that
happens.
happens, right?
Yeah.
So those guys just like lost a lot of production,
Right.
and then they're gonna face jail,
Right.
and maybe the owner or the owners of all of those bricks
Right.
are just gonna take the losses and say like, well, we
Right.
need to keep cooking more,
Right. So 2,000 bricks. It costs Colombians about $500 to produce one brick.
Yeah.
So say they lose 2,000. That's 10 million bucks.
Yes.
That's $10 million just to produce this,
Yeah.
right? So that risk is split, let's say, with the guy from Sinaloa.
Yes, exactly. He
So
paid
that's-
half, $5 million.
Yeah, so he's out $5 million. How big are these guys' war chests? Like you mentioned to me a couple of days ago, you said sometimes their coffers will be really low, like
Mhm.
their banks will be really low, and they will actually raise money for a big load like that.
Yes.
From legitimate people or not. How does that work?
Yes, from legitimate people, exactly. That again, we're at a very particular economy right now in the world, right? Nowhere really. I mean, even if you have $5 million, you're not gonna spend it all if
No.
you can actually, like raise money. You
Yeah.
have like it's like a funding.
That's right. It's like a real estate deal. You want to use other people's money.
Exactly.
If you
Yeah. Even if you have it, you're
Right.
not gonna use it.
Right.
If you can,
Not all of it. Yeah.
Exactly. You say, I'm gonna put 1 million, but I'm gonna raise the other 4 million.
The other 4 million
Mhm,
from
exactly.
like 2 or 3 different people. So
Mostly not like people involved in the illegal business.
Right.
Doctors, attorneys, businessmen, journalists.
and people in Culiacan will do that.
yeah,
People in
like,
legitimate
yes,
businesses will put up money
Of course, because
for cocaine loans.
of course, because they will never, get their hands dirty.
Right.
They will just hand out the money
Right.
and say, like, if this works, I'm gonna have a return. I'm
Right.
gonna have a actually very profitable return of
Right.
10, 15, 20%
Of course.
out of my investment.
Right.
With that, my risk is if the load gets busted by CBP at the border, right?
Right.
And
right.
then I lost my money.
Right. Are there enough people then in Culiacan? I mean, I imagine it's not too hard to find those people because how many legitimate families, business owners are there in a city as small as Culiacan? 20, 30, 50?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, look at the city. Like, it's doing really well in the real estate business.
Right.
You have exchanges, like a lot of exchange
Right.
houses in all over Culiacan.
Right.
You have nice restaurants. You have a bunch of car dealerships.
Right. Right.
Perfect places to have enough money
Mm-hmm.
to keep investing.
Mhm.
And they're not necessarily, because they won't call themselves ever drug traffickers.
No.
They're investors,
Right.
right?
Right.
And they're like, I put my money with someone. I didn't know that
Yeah.
money was gonna go to get like
Right.
$1 million.
It's almost impossible to convict them if it ever came. It's almost impossible for them to
There's no
have
way.
it come back to you.
There's
Yeah.
no way. And again, the same goes for the transfer. The drug is here. Let's say those Colombians made it all the way to Culiacan, and now he needs a way to move all that drug to the border,
Yeah.
right? He might not move a ton at once, right? He's gonna store some here and
Mhm.
send like different shipments, but he doesn't want to pay for the whole transport. So what we're
Right.
gonna do is like, I'm gonna put 10 bricks. Hey guys, do you have something else? You have fentanyl? You want to push into to the border? Let's split the plane.
Split the risk.
Yeah, let's
Right.
split the
Oh,
plane.
so
Let's
it's a lot
pay
of it's flown from Culiacan to the border.
to the border. Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And so, or even if it's a trailer, right, a truck. Like
Right.
let's split the price of the transport.
Right.
It's enough for you to have your fentanyl, my cocaine, and let's call Brian to bring his weed as well.
Right.
And we all split the cost of the transport.
Right.
And we'll split the cost of the warehouse.
And again, freelance.
All
freelance. But, the warehouses, you got to be pretty specific about where you're storing it. Do they have people up there guarding it?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Those are the costs that
come with it.
That come with it. And that's why you need to brand your shit, right? That's why you see, like bricks with the logo of like, I don't know, YouTube, with the audio or whatever brand.
Oh, because it's different people.
It's different people.
That have different drugs.
Yes.
So I always wondered that, right?
That's how,
like you got the Scorpion over here. You've got like Adolf Hitler on one of them, like just random fucking shit.
And you choose that from the beginning in Colombia, right?
Wow.
So that guy goes out there and he comes back and says like, hey man, I have this really good quality producer down there. I'm going to put, I don't know, 10 bricks. How many do you want? And I'm like, put me 20. And you, like another 20. All right. So yes. So let's brand them all the way from the start, put my brand on it. Once they get out of the microwave, they also get like,
That's right. They get the kind of stamp that they want. Right. Wow. It's changed, completely since the days of Pablo Escobar in the 70s and 80s.
Definitely, man. That's hard to grasp when you read in the news all the time. Cartel Jalisco, Cartel Sinaloa, Cartel Noroeste. Cartels doesn't really exist anymore.
Right. It's just guys selling drugs, dude.
Exactly.
It's just groups that have huge economic and military power just moving dope.
Yes.
Like everybody's just selling drugs. And there's a few figureheads still.
But those figureheads are mostly, like serving a purpose, like getting an organization together, like making sure that they don't fight, making sure that someone doesn't steal anyone, trying to make sure that this is not a mess, which is not really being so much successful in Mexico, right?
Right. But it is kind of successful in Culiacan.
In Culiacan it works,
It's like weird. It's a bunch of independent guys, but they all kind of follow the rules of a traditional mafia, and it seems to be working out with them. Who's the Cartel Noreste? I never heard of it.
It's a splinter of the, what is left from Los Zetas, Cartel de Noroeste.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so I was talking to Brian about that, like, they were the most brutal cartel, I think, that's like ever existed in Mexico.
Exactly.
And that kind of brutality can't last.
Yes.
Because the people don't accept it. And it's just too evil. I really think evil cannot stand the test of time. What happened to them?
They disappeared. That's how the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación was born, right? Before being Cartel Jalisco, they were called Mazatlecos, and they will call themselves Matacetas. Because their only job was to get rid of the Zetas, because they were like extorting people, killing people, hanging them from the bridges, like doing all those.
Being
like,
extra.
Extra, yes. They're still doing a lot of that shit.
Right.
But they were like I don't think they were worse. They were the first.
Right.
So,
interesting.
So at that time, it was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You can't hang people from bridges, right? You cannot extort the tortilla maker.
Right.
That's fucking nuts.
Are you guys stupid?
Yeah.
You're gonna put them out of business. There's gonna be nothing left to
It's happening now, but they were the first ones.
Right.
So yeah, the Cartel Jalisco came out as a group from the Sinaloa Cartel, paid by the Sinaloa Cartel, and formed by the Sinaloa Cartel, called Los Matacetas.
Oh, and then they said, fuck you.
Fuck you, and then they become the Cartel del Milenio.
Yeah.
And then another splinter said like, fuck you, Cartel del Milenio, we are the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación with El Mencho on top.
Right. See, I would do something like that. I would not do very well in Mexico because, it's so interesting to keep the staying power of a cartel like Sinaloa. People have to just accept their roles. Like everybody, and that is very Mexican. And I think it has something to do with Catholicism and just having things be set as they are from a higher power, and you can see it in the way you guys celebrate death, But in the US, like I was telling Brian the other day, you couldn't just have a group of paid guys guarding a load of bricks because every asshole thinks they can be the guy. It's just part of the culture. So I'm taking these. And come see me if you want to try it, So it's like there's no solidarity because we're taught that you can be the man.
Yeah,
you can be the next Chapo, but not necessarily in drugs and in something else. And that's how I would feel. I'm like, well, so what? I'm from like a poor family. Like I have the right to like make my own thing, and it just doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't really work that way here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you of course you have the right, but give it a try. You know, like you're
Right.
you're
And
never
and if
gonna
you
make
do
it.
that, you have to commit brutal violence the way
violence.
that Mencho did. He was
Eh,
like, "This is how I take it."
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what's happening. Yeah.
So now you have the Noreste, Noroeste. So how do these small clans,
Mhm.
these like really like they're dwarfed by Jalisco and Sinaloa.
Yeah.
How are they making money still?
I think they're all again like giving services to the bigger cartels, right? Like
Oh,
right now,
interesting.
the
So they're
cartel.
not warring them anymore, really.
No, I mean, what is like? Let's talk about the Cartel Jalisco. They're pretty
Yeah.
smart at getting new turfs, right? The Sinaloa Cartel, when they need a new turf into a city, what they'll do, they'll bring up force. They'll bring up like a bunch of art men and say like, "Fuck you, this is our turf," and they'll start like killing a bunch of people, like what happened in Juarez, and then get position in the city, right?
Right.
Cartel Jalisco will do the same, but beforehand, they will reach out to, like the weaker faction or group or gang. They will say like, "Hey man, do you really want to fight the fucking Sinaloans? Yeah, you don't have really firepower, right?" They're like, "No. All right, man, I'm gonna let you use my name, my brand. You now can call yourself Cartel Jalisco, right?
Right.
So you are us,
Right.
but let's get rid of the fucking Sinaloans."
Right. And now you also work for us, so you're going to
Yes.
help us move product. So you just
Exactly.
absorbed them without firing a shot.
Exactly. Well, you cannot enter a place with a third player in the fight.
Right.
That would be dumb, right?
Right.
And I'm gonna have to fight the government. I'm gonna have
Right.
to fight the fucking small cartel
Yeah.
and the Sinaloa
And the
Cartel.
Sinaloa Cartel, yeah.
So I'll rather just like send first a couple of men,
Right.
try to break a deal, and get rid of the main cartel right there, which is the Sinaloa Cartel in most of the states or cities,
Right.
and then own the place and own that guy and work with the government. Like the same deals that the Sinaloa Cartel broke with the government. Now I'm just gonna replace that.
Right. Okay. So, and what's the most conflicted plaza right now? Or what's the most, what area or region by the border,
Mhm.
the Las Plazas, right? What are they fighting over the hardest right now and why?
Well, the borders are somewhat always like stable in terms of violence, right? You will always have like spikes and downs and
Right.
spikes and downs and
Right.
spikes and downs. And that's how they work because everybody wants to share the border.
Right.
But most of the borders right now are owned by El Mayo and El Chapo factions. Right? Tijuana, Baja California, Sonora are mostly owned by El Mayo. I'm
Mhm.
talking specifically about borders because I know that someone else will say like Sonora, what the fuck are you talking about? That's Caro Quintero, or Baja
Right.
California, that's Sinaloa. Talking like border towns on those states, right?
Right.
So yeah, Baja California, Sonora, a part of Chihuahua. I guess those, for the most part, are owned by El Mayo.
But is there fighting there? Is Jalisco trying to take them?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
There is fighting.
Right.
The biggest plazas are Mayos. So the Sinaloans, like Los Chapitos, want those plazas, right? Because Los
Right.
Chapitos are like, man, you're paying a rent to work here.
Right.
El Mayo pays us in Culiacan.
Right.
El Mayo being a smart man, so like, yeah, I'm not gonna fight over that, but I'm gonna own Tijuana, and every time you go there, I'm gonna charge you the exact same you charge me in Culiacan.
Okay, but this is what doesn't make sense to me. If everything is flattened and the cartels just operate as a network of independent businessmen,
Mhm.
who's organizing the soldiers?
Yeah.
That seems to me like that has to be more hierarchical.
Exactly.
How does that work?
That's the part you call a cartel, right? The other part, all the business part and all that stuff,
Gotcha.
that's not a cartel. That's an organization.
Right.
That's another thing.
Right.
That's what we're talking about, right? Mostly freelancers and stuff.
Right. Right.
But the cartel is the armed groups, like El Mayo. He has Los Flechas, Operativa. He has like several groups depending where they're fighting and who they're fighting with, right?
Gotcha. Okay, so say I'm a business guy,
Mhm.
right? I'm that guy in Mexicali, Sinaloan. I know how to organize huge cocaine shipments from Colombia.
Mhm.
But one of my routes has been shut down. Do I go to, like Jalisco fucking owns
Mhm.
this route, this plaza now.
Yes.
Do I call El Mayo and be like, hey man, I need help. We got to open this up.
Yes, like remember what the whole like weed businessman we recently met here in Culiacan, what they say, well, you need permission, right?
Yeah.
You cannot work without permission. And that permission has to come from Los Chapitos.
Right.
So it's the same, like you
Or
want...
El Mayo.
Or El
Whatever.
Mayo, yeah. Like you want to like move cocaine from Sinaloa to the US.
Right.
You're gonna have to need the permission, right?
Because that's protection,
Because
too.
all the permission you need is protection, right?
That's right.
You're not gonna be able to move a ton on your own.
No.
You're gonna need...
two individuals can do that.
Yes, protection. Because we own the routes, right? El Mayo owns the routes. And that's what they want. Like, they want to establish in Chiapas. They want to set up in Zacatecas. They want to set up in Mexico City. All the route you need.
So the cartel doesn't really touch drugs anymore.
Yeah.
They just protect the drug dealers and the drug traffickers and take a fee from them.
Yes.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I think I just got the closest to understanding.
It's really complex.
It's for sure. But like, if I can break it down to somebody who's like me, trying to wrap their mind around it,
totally.
that seems like a close way of summing it up. You know what I mean? So it's essentially like, and what does that fee involved? Like what's I come to you, you're El Mayo, you say, look, I want to open up Chiapas because I want that's a prime location for offloading cocaine from Colombia.
Yeah.
What do you think that looks like? What percentage
It
do
depends.
I owe
It
you?
depends on the moment. Like right now, talking with one of the top guys of Mayo, I know that one of them is it's in Chiapas right now, and what he's doing is setting up an agreement with another group from Guatemala. They want to move loads into
Mexico.
To Mexico to be smuggled into the US. And one of the agreements, and this is gonna be a hot take if it's out there, you know,
Okay,
but whatever.
this is a scoop.
Yeah, whatever. One of the agreements that El Mayo has with the federal government, with Lopez Obrador government right now, it's to stop illegal immigration from Central America,
which is a big thing for a big political issue in Mexico. Right?
Exactly. So El Mayo is like, not specifically Lopez Obrador, but someone with the federal government. So like, hey man, we need your help to stop these traffickers from smuggling people.
Right.
So now there are a bunch of guys from the Operativa del Mayo Zambada killing a bunch of traffickers
from Guatemala. Right.
With the help of a Guatemalan organization. And their deal is, hey man, help me out stopping these guys, and I'll let you smuggle bricks through Mexico into the US. You know, I'll lend you my routes.
Think about that. But the route is the government route.
Yes. The route is El Mayo's route, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So he has got to have like one of his lawyers or a middleman go to like whoever makes the decision in, what do you call the border control here? Pasadores?
No, aduana.
But my point is, he's got to go up. He's got one of his guys has to literally go to Mexico City or meet somewhere, meet a guy, a bureaucrat, somebody who works in the government to make that kind of deal.
Yes, and
that's unreal.
Yes, and very probably the approach was the other way around. You know, like the government saying, like, this is a huge issue. I need to stop this because I'm risking my political stronghold for immigration. So I need the help of someone who has like a strong man, strong power in a place like Chiapas. Who's that man? And they're like, you know, El Mayo has like several people down in Chiapas, very strong and, you know, like powerful in terms of firepower, that they can make that happen.
Right.
So El Mayo says like, yes, leave it to me. That's part of the deal.
Of course.
Maybe he's not happy with it. Maybe he's like, oh, this fucking bullshit that I had to do that for the government.
Right.
But still, they're gonna keep letting me be out there, out here, working, operating, because I'm serving a purpose, right? So, okay, I'm gonna have to go and fix that. And he sent one of the guys I know with his group, and now they are, you know, like in rifters in the river between Chiapas and Guatemala. You know, like just like killing a bunch of like traffickers and trying to set up that deal with that Guatemala organization, right? Hey guys, I know that you want to move bricks. We're gonna give you a free pass, but help me out stopping these motherfuckers from bringing people in.
Right. Okay, so El Mayo already owns the routes. He's not going to the government and saying, let me bring cocaine in. The government's saying, I need this favor.
Yeah.
So he's kind of got to do it. Everybody has a boss.
Exactly.
Isn't that so amazing that you think the strongest drug trafficker in the world, they still the most powerful people in Mexico will always be the government. Like the shit cannot run without the approval of the federal government.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and that's something that I know for a fact that El Chapo knows, and that's why he's.
Well, we all kind of know it. I mean, Narcos, the show, was great at like extrapolating that.
They
like
know
the
that's
real
the way.
awful bad guys were
Our
those
politicians.
thugs for the what was the main political party here for like 80 or 90 years?
El PRI.
Yes,
The PRI.
Exactly, the PRI were the guys that even the drug traffickers were scared of.
Yeah.
Like those are bad men.
Yes.
We're
at a point where people like El Mayo, people like El Chapo or Los Chapitos are making themselves so valuable, so indispensable
right.
to the government that at some point it looks like they're going to replace government, right? Like the government needs more from them than them from government.
Of course.
They're owning plazas. They're owning complete territories.
Right.
Like whole states. Borders on both sides.
Not to mention like legitimate businesses for
bunch of
generations that they've just been putting money into.
Exactly. And they're filling gaps that the government is leaving in rural towns. They're building houses, they're building bridges, they're building hospitals.
Oh, so they are
schools.
doing this for people.
They are doing that for people, yes.
Gotcha. Which is the Pablo Escobar model,
exactly.
Robin Hood model.
You win what they call social basis, right? Like you earn social basis around those areas.
Right.
So those guys work, they get more like close to you than to the government, right?
Right.
They're around more.
Brian and I were on our way to the graveyard, as we were telling you off camera. Actually, we were leaving the graveyard, and we missed a turn, right? So now we're on that road that we were on last night, going out to Cartel El Mayo's stronghold territory, and we see a police checkpoint, and we just seize up like I did. I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what Mexican people feel when ordinary citizens feel when they see the cops, because they operate further outside the law than the cartels do.
Exactly.
They have their own laws. You don't steal from people. And they're not going to arrest you.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing they need from the people is to not inform on them.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And here in Culiacan, they work, of course, under the permission of Los Chapitos, right? Let's say
who does
the police.
Okay,
so
yes, please go into that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's say that policeman stops you, and I don't know, they kill you, and it's like, dude, they killed an American.
Does that happen? Well, first of all, do they kill Mexican citizens?
Who, like the police?
The police.
The police kills all the fucking time, man. Like those are like the Sicarios for the cartel as well. They work as pistoleros.
They do a lot of the hits and the freelance killings for the cartel in Culiacan?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay, and these are just local underpaid pigs.
Yes,
obviously, right?
Specifically the local police. The local police all over Mexico, they are known for working as pistoleros, like low-level killers for the cartels, right? They will either kill you right there or take you and,
arrest you, pretend to arrest you, and then take you somewhere and
take you somewhere with them or something like that.
Right, okay. So, and I'm sure that worries a lot of Mexican citizens know this, and so that's why they're terrified to deal with them.
Yes, because many of the cases of disappearances, which is basically murders, started with a police stopping you, right? So, yes.
That's what I felt today. Now, how else do the police work with the cartel in Culiacan? Explain everything you can just about be as lookouts or as,
they're basically
informers, anything like that?
They're basically another group of Sicarios, like, like Los Flechas, and the Operativa Bélica, and, like all different, like another one is the Policía Municipal de Culiacan, or, like in Zacatecas, Durango, like it happens everywhere.
Right.
They use the local police stations as another group for them to have them protection, to do intelligence, to kill people, to stash stuff, to traffic arms, because most of the times when they make a lot of shit in a city, like they start killing regular people.
Right.
They kill the doctor, they kill a lawyer, they kill a hotel owner. Sometimes they're not in it or whatever. They just want to create panic so they can set up their own police chief, in that city. And
wait, explain that. How would they be able to set up their own police chief? Like, if there were a bunch of murders that
Yes.
would force the police chief of whatever city that was to step down?
No, let's there is, if you look at the stats of the figures of violence in most of the cities, whenever there's elections, they will go way up.
Wow.
And that's directly related, right?
Which is the opposite of the United States, where it's like they want to do everything to get those stats down before the election, right?
Yes, right. In Mexico, it's the total opposite, right? They will create a lot of fucking mess around a city, specifically like main border cities,
Right.
You know, like Ciudad Juarez, Tijuana.
Right.
We recently went through elections, like government, state government, and local government.
Right.
And the whole fucking state was on fire, man. They were killing like just regular people on the streets. Everyone was like panicking. It was crazy. And that's only because, you know, there's a new governor stepping in. You don't know who that's going to be, but you need to have the word for both, right? And whenever you sort of know, it's like, you know, yeah, apparently it's going to be a PAN, you know? That's going to be the new government here.
Wow.
Hey, well, you send
ahead
someone,
of time.
Exactly. Well, not ahead of time, but you like all of us, you read the news and you kind of like know, and you kind of like feel that. Sometimes you don't, so they just like keep like creating momentum. And once, like, let's say the news are John is the new governor for Chihuahua State, I sent someone to reach out to you and say like, hey, my boss wants to talk to you about what? About the chief of police, about certain government contracts to build hospitals or you know, like highways and all that stuff, and several other stuff. Let's talk. And if you don't want to talk to me, it clearly means that you're working with someone else, you have an agreement with someone else, or you want to, you know, like have your own operation, which is even worse for them, right? He's gonna get all the fucking money.
Right.
He's gonna get all the rights because he's the new governor.
Right.
If that happens, you're gonna start like creating even more fucking violence in that state. Right. A lot of violence.
So if you're the governor of Chihuahua and you won't talk to me,
yes,
El Mayo Zambada in Sinaloa,
you're like,
there's
boom,
gonna be
boom.
bodies until you come to the table.
Until you say like, dude, help me out here. This is like driving my numbers down with voters and shit. And I need you to help me like keep the violence down.
Right.
And it's like, okay, now
you
we're
step
talking.
in and you're like, I got you.
Let's sit, let's talk.
Daddy's got
and
you.
as soon as there's an agreement, like violence starts like going down like that.
Wow. So they'll pump up violence intentionally before elections in order to
have the
gain
upper
influence
hand
right away when the new guy gets elected.
Exactly.
You know, he say, hey, look, there's 10 murders a day in what's the capital? What's the border city? Nogales, right?
Yeah.
Can guarantee that will go down. Just talk to me. You know, this can't be good for you politically.
Yes.
So let me see what I can do for you.
Exactly.
So every single politician in the border cities or heads of the provinces, the states,
or even in routes, you know, like not even border cities.
Right.
Let's talk about
cities on the routes.
Yeah, let's talk about what's happening in Zacatecas right now. Zacatecas is like burning right now.
It's hot right there. Yeah. What's going on with that?
That's what's going on. Like a lack of power. They still not decided like who is working with who. So they're like boom, 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 boom. Zacatecas is a main route up to the north, right? Right now. Now again, let's say Los Mayos want to own the route all the way from South America, to the border.
Right.
So you'll see first a lot of violence in Chiapas, and then a bit in Durango.
Right.
And then Zacatecas, and then, you know, like that, until they own the whole route. And then, now, they own the whole route, and the Cartel Jalisco starts popping up again. And so, like, no, give me back Zacatecas. You know, like, they're trying to control complete routes.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you're going to see violence only in border cities.
Right.
Places like Zacatecas, San Luis Potosí.
Right. And the only way you can control an entire route is with the help of the authorities in those cities and towns along the route, right?
You need to have the perfect trifecta, right? Like local governments, state governments, and cartel working together on the same
cartels.
side. Yes.
Right. Okay, so interesting. So in Zacatecas right now, because that borders Texas.
No. Zacatecas is way down. It's like that borders Durango. So it's a center state. It's a state of the center of Mexico.
So it's contested.
Right? But it used, and I bring up Zacatecas because it used to be one of the safest cities in Mexico. Nothing was really happening. It's a really nice town, and it's one of the towns that gets more of the what they call the remesas from the U.S. Right, the money sent by immigrants.
That's right.
To Mexico.
Remittances.
Remittances.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so basically. Yeah, the politicians don't know who they're working with yet.
Yes.
And so we're going to go to war.
Yeah.
not even against each other necessarily, but we're just going to cause chaos.
Yes, both.
And the guys making those decisions are, it's from Sinaloa anyways, it's going to be
Mayo,
one of two people basically.
Los Chapitos.
Right.
And from the other side, right now it's Cartel Jalisco El Mencho, right?
Right. And again, so basically if I'm a trafficker and I want to move it along the route that goes through Zacatecas, I just got to know that route's not open right now.
Yes.
Or it's going to be way higher risk.
Yes, exactly. And then you're going to call, let's say El Mayo, right? You're never going to call it Mayo, but let's say you call it Mayo.
Right.
And so like, hey man, I'm going to move these way
You text him.
Yeah, you send a WhatsApp, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Voice note.
You DM him.
Hey, Mayo, I need to tell you something. You know? I'm worried about my load.
Hey, Mayo. What's up, buddy? How are you, man? Yeah.
I put a grand on you, and what's going to happen when it goes on Zacatecas? And he'll tell you, don't worry, I got it under control.
How many reps, how many like administrative middlemen do you think a guy like El Mayo has to take meetings with, heads of government? To reach out to make truces when the Chapitos in Culiacan are fighting. Like how many suits does he have? You're talking about lawyers, investors, bankers, all that shit.
You might only need 3. You need an attorney that is well connected with the federal government, and if he's well connected with the federal government, he's also well connected with state and local governments, of course, because he has the power.
Right.
You will need someone with the business chamber of commerce in several states. Maybe a federal, because those guys, it's a conglomerate of business owners, right? So if you're in the business chamber of commerce, right? In the federal national level,
right?
That guy holds a lot of power, right? And he can call someone in Ciudad Juarez or in Tijuana and say like, hey man, this is me, the director of the Chamber of Commerce at national level.
Right.
Let's meet up. I need to talk to you about something.
Right. And what could he have to say?
It could be like, hey man, El Mayo needs to move a lot of money, and we need to, develop the what do you need in your city? He's like, you know what? We need like more hotels.
Yeah.
More concert venues.
Great.
Or
we have the money.
More events.
We're
okay, let's do that together. But we need for that to be built with this kind of money of someone. You don't want to know, but help me out here. It's a business owner.
Right.
That needs to move money into that. That's gonna look good on you. You talk to your president, your local president, your municipal presidente. Let's go by that, right?
There is a subtlety to the corruption that happens in Mexico because it's, like English is such like a hard, direct language.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's very like difficult for me to like offer a bribe to Brian. It doesn't sound like bribery.
Yeah.
Because it's just one of those things where it's like there's a lot of crunch to it.
Yes.
But Spanish is like playing a flute. It's musical the way this understanding. You know what I mean? This is how things work. Mm-hmm. And the only real benefit you have is by saying yes. Mm-hmm. It can only be bad if you don't work with us.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. And then like the third person would be like his accountant. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you manage hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars?
Definitely. Right? You'll have an accountant that is also well connected.
Right.
He works with the Banco Central, like the central bank, and he knows he also knows your attorney. Maybe he was recommended by your own attorney. They're gonna have to work together.
And he probably oversees. He's probably got tons of assistants who don't even know they're working for El Mayo. Like
one of our friends we recently met on this trip. I'm not gonna say his name on camera, but he owns what we call a facturera, right? He's in Mexico. For your money to be legit, you need a factura, which is a receipt, but an official receipt.
Right.
You cannot only be having a bunch of like commercial receipts, like what you got from Starbucks.
Right.
That receipt. That's
no
not
good.
official.
Okay.
That's not official to say this is how I spend my money. Like, and specifically for like huge quantities of money, right?
Right.
I bought 50,000 cars.
That's not good.
Okay,
enough.
You have the receipt, but where's your factura? The official
factura is like a government stamp.
Government stamp. Like,
where
is it?
To try to crack down on money laundering.
Yeah, it's basically approved by the IRS, right?
Right.
So they have a bunch of factureros that can get you any sort of fucking factura. Like,
and
how much?
And those are plants within the Mexican IRS? Are they people working directly inside of the
bunch
Mexican
of
IRS?
accountants
Right,
that
right.
that's a huge network that they don't even know what they're doing. Like they're just like, hey man, we a client of ours needs to clean 10,000 pesos, right?
Easy.
What can he buy for? Like he's like, you know what? What does he do? Like he has a podcast. He bought a camera. I'll give you a factura for a camera. Boom, there you go.
Right.
It's 7%. 7% of the 10,000. That's fine.
Right.
For the factura.
Right.
So yeah,
and is that technically legal to take a percentage if you work?
Of course not.
Of course not.
No. But you're an accountant. You're an accounting business. So you're doing accounting. And you're taking a percentage for an accounting service.
For of course, right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You're giving a service. And that's your price, right?
Wow. It's almost perfect.
It works very well, man. If Latin America is good for something, it's for making corruption work.
Efficiency, the efficiency of corruption.
Mm-hmm.
It
really works.
Wow, that's amazing. So, who takes over after this? I guess what will the future bring for Sinaloa? Is it going to continue to get flattened, or will there always be figureheads? I mean, I guess you kind of always need figureheads, right, to manage that level of like bureaucracy, right?
Yeah, but now no one wants to be El Chapo anymore. No one wants to be El Mayo anymore.
Right.
We heard that straight from those guys, right?
Right.
And that's because they know what could happen if your face is out there, you know?
Yeah.
They still want to operate, but not with a face, you know? They still want to have the power, but not with a face. So yeah, I guess
that could cause a lot of violence though, because if you don't have that figurehead, like we all want a peace now.
What I think is sort of, but still, you know that you're gonna get a bullet on your head. You just know you're not gonna know the face of that bullet, right?
Right.
So if that bullet comes right now to you, you're gonna know that was definitely from Los Chapitos because you're fucking up his hometown, right? Their hometown, right? But if we didn't know how, like, the name of Los Chapitos, who they are, you're gonna get an anonymous bullet,
right?
But it's gonna have the same effect on you.
I'd rather know who the bullet's coming from. I think it's a good thing to have a couple of sides. It's like because then you know who the war is between. You know.
But what purpose does that serve? I mean, you know that you're not gonna fuck up this town because it has an owner.
Yeah.
You don't know who.
Right.
Know? But he has you know that he has an owner.
Right.
And that's what the people's gonna tell you. Hey man, don't fuck up here. This town has an owner. What is his name? You don't want to know.
Doesn't matter.
You don't care.
Right.
Don't fuck up. If you fuck up, you're gonna get what's coming, right?
Right.
So it doesn't. The whole thing about writing and producing content and like doing documentaries on drug traffickers.
Right.
It's a lot of morbosity, right? Because
a lot of what?
Morbosity, like how do you call it? Morbo?
Oh,
like,
it's very morbid. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Right.
Why do you need the names and the specifics and the routes and if Los Chapitos are Maro del Mayo, you know, like just to tell a tale, you know, just to have a tale, nice story.
It's details. You're weaving what you are doing specifically is you really are telling a story because that's how humans consume facts.
Yeah,
it's through story.
Definitely.
You know?
Definitely.
What drives you? What why were you interested in it in the first place? And like do you have the same like vigor to keep wanting to do more of it, you know, now this deep 12 years in the game or something like that?
Yeah, man. Yes. I mean, what first drove me into it was that I was trying to be a journalist when I was still in college. And that's when Ciudad Juarez was a fucking mess, right?
Back then.
The fight with those Chapos against the Juarez Cartel and all that stuff. And
this was like in the mid-2000s, right?
It was like 2000s? In 2007, late 2007, early 2008.
Right.
That was so fucking confusing to me. It's like, what is happening, right? Like, why? On top of that, they killed 5 of my best friends, you know, like in the same place.
Wow.
So I really wanted to know what happened.
Were they connected, your friends? Or
not at all. They were just like a casualty of the whole fucking
right. They were
thing.
they were part of that chaos that the groups were causing.
Yes. And then on top of that, I got kidnapped by the local police, you know.
Right.
So,
I heard that on Concrete. But we'll save. I don't really want to make you retell that. I don't know. I don't like when I know somebody's already told a story.
Yeah, totally.
I don't feel the need to like go into it.
So a bunch of stuff started happening around me, that was not normal. And
Yeah.
Mexico was not like that. We weren't used to that, you know?
Right.
That started in Juarez. Actually, we have this sort of like joke that we said the whole country se juarificó, you know, like
Yeah.
it juarified the whole country,
That's right.
Because it
That's right.
started in Ciudad Juarez.
Right. And we forget that. This violence is a new phenomenon of just the last 15, 16 years
Exactly.
from the president declaring war on the cartels.
Mm-hmm.
You guys had violence like Colombia in the 80s, but more actually.
Yeah, exactly. So this is new. And I was right there at the city where it all started,
Right.
trying to be a journalist and trying to understand like social phenomena.
Right.
So I don't know, I guess I was just caught up on it, you know? I was
Yeah.
like, what's happening? And I started like researching and of course you grew up with people at your high school or your elementary
Right.
or, you know, college that are somewhat involved in that business.
Right.
So those are your main first sources, right? Like, hey
Right.
man, you know my family knows you, we've been friends since ever. I just happened to go into journalism
Yeah.
and you went into crime.
Right.
But while it's happening, I was told this, and they will tell me a piece of information that was actually very valuable. And
Yeah.
I was just like write off a story from that. And that's why I started like getting a bunch of sources
Right.
all over Latin America, you know?
Yeah.
You start off with a friend or with someone who's your first source of information, and then you...
Have you thought, besides the time you were kidnapped, I'm sure you thought you could get killed, right? You probably thought you were going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Have you felt like that since, as you working as a professional journalist?
Yeah, several times. Sometimes with obvious reasons, right?
Yeah.
Like one time I was producing a documentary for Showtime. And on
Which one? Plug it.
It's called Ready for War. Actually,
Ready for War?
Ready for War. It's
Okay.
on Showtime. It's about U.S. veterans. They are green card holders, and they commit a crime in the U.S. Right? Like
Right.
they had a DUI,
Right.
or they shot a fire, like to the,
Yeah, I'm shooting off a firearm and shit.
and they got deported.
Okay,
And-
so these are Mexican
Yes.
citizens. They're Mexican nationals
With a permanent resident card in the U.S.
who fought for the United States military and then
Exactly.
they got deported after.
And then they
Gotcha.
got deported. And on this side of the border, when they get deported, the cartel are like, you know, these guys are very valuable to us.
Of course, come
They-
in.
They have a bunch of plugs
Yeah.
in the U.S. They know how to use weapons. They
Yeah.
can train us. Very probably they know how to buy weapons.
Yeah,
You know, they know how to train people. So these guys are very valuable.
right.
So they started recruiting a bunch of them. We embedded with some of them. We came down here to Sinaloa to see how they train Sicarios, like one of the veterans.
Wow.
So
Go
yeah,
into that really quick. How do they train Sicarios?
well,
Specifically here.
it's super easy. You know, it's nothing complicated. They
Right.
grab a bunch of kids,
Yeah,
hand over AKs.
right.
And
What are we
start-
talking, like 12 years old?
Yeah, 12, 13,
Yeah.
15, up to 20 something.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
and there's one commander that tells them, you know, like let's disassemble this gun.
Yeah.
And then let's put it back together.
Right,
And then put the clip, you know, and this is how you wear an AK-47.
right, right,
Now let's shoot.
right.
And they're very basic, you know. They say like whenever one of those kids asks them like, "Hey man, I don't really know how to grab an AK or something like that." They're just like, just start shooting. Eventually, you're just gonna, you know, hit the target.
Wow.
So
Okay,
they-
so it's not super organized and military-like it is in the movies.
Yeah, no,
Gotcha.
it's not like that. And
Okay.
so yeah, I mean, and,
So you embedded with them.
yes, and when in the last scene we're shooting in Ciudad Juarez, we're about to wrap up. It was like we went into it for 2 years, so it was really.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really a long project. This is our last scene, and we're interviewing one of the veterans that works for the Juarez Cartel. And we're about to break to him that another veteran who actually walked the line all the time, he got the pardon, to go back into the U.S. by the White House.
Yeah.
So we tell him that, and he sort of like sees his whole movie, you know, like, fuck, that could have been me, but
Right.
I chose this way. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And then one of his guys looks out the door and start asking for our passports. And in the documentary, you can hear the sound when I tell everyone, hey guys, like, I need your passports. These guys, like asking for all of
Yeah.
your IDs. it's completely U.S. production, so everybody has like an American passport.
Right.
I hand over all the passports, and he's like, "Where do you got this from?" I'm like, "Well, from the consulate." And he's like, "No, I know what you're doing. These are fake. Who are you guys really?" And then he starts stripping out because he's like super fucking high on something.
Right.
He started making calls, and then there's another guy pops up with a fucking gun, like a huge gun. He's like a 17, 18 years old kid, you know, like all fucked up as well.
Of course, yeah. Those are the scariest. The kids having guns are the scariest.
I remember I saw a knife, like a man-made, handmade knife in the kitchen.
Right.
And I grabbed it and put it in my back pocket. And I'm like, dude, I mean, it might be helpful. Because the windows were all blocked with woods, you know, and bricks. They were like canceled. And right next to the kitchen, I managed to see a shovel that is all full of like dirt and blood. So apparently they were burying bodies in that house. We were at the wrong house, wrong moment.
How many of you were there in the crew?
We were sound guy, camera guy, the camera assistant, director, and 2 producers.
Yeah.
There were 6.
Right.
And the driver was outside.
But don't they have a mandate to not kill Americans?
Yes.
Like you do that, and there's going to be heat,
exactly.
a lot of heat.
Yeah, that's why at the beginning I was like, yeah, we're good, you know?
Yeah.
But when they actually were like very committed to it, they were like, no, you're not getting out of here. And then he kept calling, and our guy, I thought he was a boss, right?
Right.
And then I told him like, hey man, like, what's up? And he's like, hey man, open the fucking door. And he's like, nah man, I called Mike. And he said, no, they're not getting out. And I was like, who the fuck is Mike? And apparently Mike was the boss, right?
Right.
And I was like, shit. And then he comes up to me, takes a photo with his cell phone.
Right.
Sends it over. And I'm still trying to negotiate.
Right.
And at that moment, I was like, dude, we're fucked. We're so fucked.
Yeah.
We're just going to fucking chop us to pieces and take the blame. They're going to go to jail or whatever. But I'm going to be fucking dead.
You know?
It
doesn't matter to you.
Yeah, man. I was like super fucking scared at that point. You know? I was shitting myself. One of the producers said like, man, I can't feel my hands. And I'm like, just chill, man. Just breathe.
Yeah.
We're going to be all right. And he just started like doing that. And eventually he said like, hey, disculpe.
Yeah.
Go out, get out. Like,
right. So somebody saw the photo and was like, he's filming, he's good.
The thing is like we go back to the Lucerna in Ciudad Juarez.
Right.
2 a.m.
Yeah.
Super fucking, bummed that we were like, we weren't even talking,
Yeah.
We were like in silence. I enter and I hear these boys, which is a fucking ugly voice that I recognized. And it's like, hey, mi Luis. And I turn my head, and it's Mike. And now everything makes sense. Like, oh, so this is Mike, the Mike that they call.
Right.
He's
in your hotel room?
He's in the lobby. Yeah.
Okay.
Like right in front of the elevators, right?
Right.
And I'm like, wow, this is one of my sources.
Yeah.
He's a fucking assassin. He's a killer. He loves to kill. He loves to chop people off. And he was just out of prison. He had been out like for 15 days.
Jesus.
And I was like, what? And I'm like, ¿Qué pedo, Mike? What the fuck are you doing here? And he was like, venga, sit down with me. And I was like, what happened? Like, where were you? And I was like, I'm doing a documentary. And he's like, dude, you were at the wrong fucking house, man. You should have never been there.
Right.
And if it's not because they send me your photo and I recognize you, the order was like to chop you to pieces and to like, we have a bunch of bodies, like buried in the back of that house. Who let you in? And I'm like, well, this guy, the veteran guy. And I'm like, I just don't want you to like retaliate or whatever,
Right.
I mean, he was trying to be nice with us.
Right.
And he's like, no, he's going to get punished. But be careful. It's like, cuídate, güey. And I'm like, man, fuck, you literally saved my life. Thanks.
Right.
And it's like, yeah.
So did they punish that guy? Did they kill that guy?
No, they tablazos.
Right. They hit him, spanked him on the ass. So he just led you guys into the wrong house to interview the wrong guys?
Yeah.
Damn, that seems like almost too convenient.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably.
Who knows?
Yeah, probably. I don't know, man. Like that was one of those times. And there's been other times where the things didn't really escalate that much.
Right.
That I just have the feeling that I'm just gonna die right there that night, So it's dangerous.
It makes Culiacan seem like paradise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what's ugly about all of those documentaries that portray Culiacan, you know, like super, like it's all dark, you know, it's all bad, all narcos.
Everybody we told everybody from the States, when we told we were coming down here, they were like, call the State Department, make sure they know where you are. Text us when you're leaving. I'm like,
imagine if you had to call the State Department, like, track me, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep me on track. You know,
we're not going to do any of that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was telling Tata, the guy who was with me doing the camera. He was like kind of scared. He was his first time here as well. And I was like, dude, you're gonna fucking love Culiacan. Of course, it has the component of crime, and the narco is fucking everywhere. And they're watching you everywhere. They're listening to you, and they're like.
Have they been watching us? Like when we leave our hotel, like we left our hotel today with no escort, no Mexican people with us.
Absolutely, man. That is for sure.
That's wild.
The last time I was here,
they probably have somebody on payroll at the Lucerna. I bet.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. I mean? Yeah, I mean the last time I was here, they sent me photos of a white girl that was at La Lomita, the vantage point.
Right.
And they asked me, like, is she with you? And I was like, no. And she's like, okay. And I was like, what's up?
You should have said yes and saved her life.
No, and then eventually he told me, like, no, they are with a Discovery Channel, whatever.
Okay.
But we just needed to know who she was with.
Right.
Know? And they just eventually want information. They just want information,
They're not bloodthirsty people.
No. They just want to know who you are, what you're doing, in case, because one of my sources as well, like, in a different time, he sent me through a Telegram a photo because I was like giving him shit a bit about the DEA operating in Culiacan, you know?
Right. Is there DEA in Culiacan?
There is. I mean, he told me, like, I know for a fact. It's like, Carnal, come on. Like, I mean, I know you're kind of like paranoid and the whole organization is like, but imagine being a DEA in fucking Culiacan. Like, you're white or not, but I mean, how?
No, they would have a Latino DEA agent.
Yes, that's why that will be like that would make the most sense, right? But no, it's a güero, tall, you know. Well, the photo they sent me, it's like you. Wow. That's why I told you guys, like, no camo.
Crazy, right?
You know?
Wow, yeah.
So and they sent me this photo. He was dressed as a Mexican federal police, but they have footage from the city, right, and from houses like these eye-ring things, and right. They were making surveillance at night at one of the houses, and they got hold of that footage,
right.
And they have his face, they have his eyes.
So they were watching where the safe houses, where the soldiers or the federal police were staying.
No, we're surveilling. They were like surveilling a house, right?
So they were surveilling this guy's surveilling.
Yes,
the cartel was surveilling the surveillance.
Yes.
Wow.
The surveillers, apparently what happened is that they went around a house, like, like very quietly to make surveillance if someone was there, but they had this eye ring.
The ring cameras.
Yeah, the ring cameras.
The ring doorbells.
Yes. So they managed to get a clear view of his face because he went too close to the entrance, and they have and he sent me his face,
right?
And he's like, that's that CA dressed as a federal police. We already have investigated him, and they are working here, man.
Right, so, and they're not going to kill a DEA agent. You would obviously never do that.
Has happened before.
Well, with Kiki Camareno, but I don't think it happens. From what I gather, and I could be totally off, I think the Sinaloa Cartel is way too measured and smart with what they do to kill a DEA agent.
Yes,
I think they just want to know where he's at. So if I know where my enemy is, I just know
how to move and how to run and where to run and where to hide. You know, exactly. Yeah.
So what does a DEA agent think he can accomplish down here? I mean, I guess that's like, what does any drug police? I think it's just their job. They're just doing it. They know it won't leave a dent, but they're just kind of doing it, right?
Yeah. What is the FBI doing domestically? Gathering a bunch of fucking information, but not doing shit.
But
just like gathering information.
Right.
That's what they do.
So last night, and we'll wrap pretty soon. Last night we were hanging out with these. I don't even want to call them Sicarios because they're not hitmen. They're just they're young guys in their 20s guarding El Mayo. They on one of their radios, they get a call that one of the kitchens that they have has been raided.
Yeah.
So that's either a meth or a fentanyl kitchen, open air, which don't really happen anymore for this reason. And it got hit by the Mexican military. Right. And the military, it seems like that's what the cartel really worries about. You know, there's DEA, but it's really the Mexican military.
Yes.
So go into that, like, do they have anybody inside the military, or are they able to corrupt them still?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Okay.
definitely. That's for sure. That's happening. I've been writing a lot about that, about the relationship between the military and the several cartels, not only the Sinaloa Cartel. And yeah, some of them are actually on the payroll. Some of them are wearing two hats, you know. And
Right.
yes.
Oh,
yeah.
taking money from two people, maybe.
Well, from the government
Right,
and from the
obviously,
cartel.
right,
Yes,
okay.
exactly. So,
But still, they raided a kitchen. So is that just for appearances, or is that
no,
just
because I
for
don't.
stats?
Because I don't think that happens at an institutional level, right? Like not all. Actually, the military is the less corrupt of all the police
Of course,
in Mexico,
right.
right? Or law enforcement in Mexico. So yeah, it happens at a regional, you know, like
Individual level.
or regional. What we call destacamento, you know, like a regional company.
Right,
Like
right.
those guys are going to be established in the town we were last night, right? So get to the commander of that regional destacamento and try to sweet talk to him, or
Right.
try to bribe him.
Right.
So it will leave us alone. you
So
know?
they just didn't pay off the right people, or they just couldn't infiltrate whatever
yeah,
wing of the military hit
yes,
this kitchen.
Exactly. Yeah, like in Culiacan, of course, the military is in their pocket. You know, like
Yeah.
the military, like regional commander or whatever.
Right.
It's in their pocket. But but they keep they keep switching, right? They're gonna send a
Right.
new commander in 2
Right,
years or whatever.
Right.
And if he doesn't really want to, because there's a bunch of like very honorable military members,
Right.
you know, like they actually want to serve the country,
Right.
they will say like, fuck you, no. And that might like shake things up a bit, you know?
So there's not really anything they can do when the military tells the cartels to fuck off.
Nothing they can do but run
Cause
or
more
fight.
chaos. Right.
Run or fight.
Do they sometimes, if they have a military in pocket in Culiacan, let's say, will they intentionally just feed them some scraps, give them some kitchens, give them some busts?
Sí, claro.
Just
yes.
here's your statistics,
Yeah.
and none of our people are going to be there,
Exactly.
right? But
yeah.
we'll let you know. Just go in.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Blow the whole thing up.
And that happens also like at the highest political level, right?
Right.
Whenever a new politician needs a new star. It's
Yeah.
like, so who is it gonna be? You decide that. Just
Right.
let me know.
Right.
And then they throw like someone like Beltran-Leyva at this moment, right? It's like, well, it's gonna have to be him.
Hang on. Explain that. I missed that. What does that mean?
So basically, when the Beltran-Leyva was opening,
Beltran-Leyva.
Leyva,
Yeah,
yes,
Beltran-Leyva,
like,
which is
another,
which
of
was
the-
one of the original families, right,
Yeah.
in the Sinaloan
Mhm,
Federation.
mhm.
And what part of Sinaloa? North?
I guess he was operating out of I guess the whole state, like because back then El Mayo, Chapo, and Beltran-Leyva,
Yeah.
amongst a couple of others, were owning the whole state. You
Yeah,
know? Like
right,
they were
right.
working. They had the thing well solved, and there was
Yeah.
not infight between them.
Right.
Yeah. So the government needed someone, you know, like someone big.
When was this?
I think it happened. I can't really remember. I will be lying to you if I throw out a
Like
fucking
recently,
thing.
in the last 10
No,
years,
no,
15
no.
years?
Yeah, maybe like 13 years ago, 15, something like that.
And Chapo gave
And Chapo and Mayo, they both got together and said like, who is it gonna be? And they decided it's gonna be Beltran-Leyva, right?
So why did they feel like they had to? Why did the government come to them and say somebody's got to go?
Because they needed, like, the pressure was too much. Like, it's like the Sinaloa
Right.
Cartel is growing a lot. They're doing a lot of shit.
And that was the new president that declared war on the
Mhm,
cartels, so they
mhm.
had to feed him somebody.
Yeah.
Wow,
So that's
that's
how,
unreal.
yeah.
That's unreal. It's like at the end of the day, it's save yourself. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So really, I mean, the reality is none of anything can operate in Mexico. No drug trafficking can operate without violence because it just takes that. You have to scare people into cooperation. You have to, like you said, cause chaos to get the politicians on your side in these key areas to establish and maintain drug routes.
Mhm.
So even if I'm I'm an educated guy from Sinaloa, I probably have like a master's degree in economics and I got a bunch of clout. I want to start moving cocaine shipments.
Mhm.
You could do that and not see any violence ever,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But you're still, at the end of the day, the cartel is the cartel. They're an army.
Exactly.
And they're just, they're
Yeah.
killing people.
Definitely. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. It's It's crazy, man. It's sad, of course, for like all the victims. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, even if they are involved with the cartels,
Yeah.
they're still, humans. And they're still,
Yeah.
Like we saw last night, they have kids, they have mothers, they have friends. You know,
Right.
like they're humans, they're people. Like you and me.
Did those kids last night? I mean, what would they say? Like, do they accept death? Do they accept? Or to them, like, this is just business. This is just the business we're in. Like, do they think that far ahead?
They're kids, man. Like, remember that little girl singing El Mayo's Narco corrido with her small guitar?
Unbelievable.
That was fucking crazy.
Crazy. This little girl was singing a Narco corrido song
To the birthday guy.
to the guy whose birthday it was. Couldn't have been more than like 3 years old, and she was singing a tune like to honor, the most wanted drug trafficker in the world.
Exactly.
That's an insane way to grow up.
Yeah.
That's wild. Well, to them, I mean, I don't know. It's all in the game, but it definitely won't change. I don't think, right?
I don't think it's gonna change, man. I think Mexico has still to like go rock bottom, and it's still gonna be, like,
How so? Like with the bloodshed, or
yes,
economically?
in general, I think both ways. I think they're very intertwined, like economics and violence in Mexico.
Do you know what I think? I think perhaps that, but it could be that a rising level of affluence in Mexico could actually be bad for the recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
Because like in the United States, for instance, the Italian mafia, they have to bring guys over from the old country because they can't get new kids in, because the mob bosses and their people that work for them, their kids like go to college and they integrate and they get legitimate jobs and they live the American dream. That's like what real gangsterism is. It's like, I've said it before on this show, it's to not be a gangster. That's the goal of the gangster. So I think Mexico is going to become like the next China, because America cannot depend on Chinese products anymore. It's too corrupt. They're locking down for the pandemic every other week. Mexico is primed to become like the major manufacturing hub for the Western Hemisphere. That could happen too. So it will get to a place where the middle class becomes strong enough to where not everything is as corruptible, and it just gets harder and harder for the cartels to operate. So they become more of a criminal enterprise and not this like government that they are now.
Yeah, but exactly on that. Like if they become criminal enterprise, which right now they're like what I call them. I don't call them cartels. I call them like criminal insurgencies, right?
Right.
But that means that their inroads in everything is going to be stronger. Maybe not much more violent,
right?
But definitely stronger. And the guns are not going to go anywhere, man. Like that violence is not going to go anywhere. Maybe it's just going to be at a latent state,
Right.
But it's going to be there, and they're going to have way more inroads. Right now, they own the illegal logging business, the illegal mining business, the export of fish like tatuaba, like vaquita marina. They own government contracts to build highways.
Right.
They are setting up politicians, chiefs of police.
Yeah.
Laundering money for regular business owners.
Right.
Their inroads are now like way too deep. They're not just drug traffickers anymore.
No.
Their business is not trafficking drugs to the US.
They're criminal organizations.
They are organizations.
And because they're really not trafficking drugs into the U.S., as you said. They're bringing them to the border.
Yes.
They're bringing them to the border, and
we cannot keep calling them narcos. They're not. They're not.
Yeah.
They're criminal insurgencies with fucking armed groups that are basically paramilitaries.
Right.
So this is
here's
still
the crime, and here's the muscle. They're completely two different bodies.
And that's still gonna have to. We're still gonna have to see how that gets more solid.
Right.
As a structure, and that's gonna hurt. And that's going to happen in the next 10 years. So that's why I think.
In the next 10 years, what? Like, what will that bottom look like?
It's still, this is still moving a lot. This is like, they're changing from narcos to these criminal organizations with an armed branch. But those armed branch are now like paramilitaries, right? Like with their names on their flags.
Yeah, they all got like fucking signs and shit.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Merch. They're moving merch.
Yes, exactly. So they're literally moving merch. And so that's going to have to take some sort of shape, because right now it feels like too evolving to like it's still at it's not its final state,
Right.
as it is right now.
Right.
The deals are still like trying to make sense.
Yeah.
Between like the armed groups and what the cartel properly owns and what the organization owns and what the role
sure.
of the government,
Sure.
it's still like evolving right now. It's
Right.
moving right now. That's gonna have to become solid.
Right, to see where we go from there.
Yes, exactly. Like who's gonna have the upper hand?
Right.
We need an upper hand for this shit to stop.
Yeah.
Either would it be like the politicians or the criminal organizations or even the paramilitaries or the military. We just fucking need an upper hand for these to actually be better.
Right.
But it's still way too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uncertain.
Yeah. I for sure think it's, but either way, it's still absence of a reliable state to mediate where resources go and poverty.
Yeah, yes,
you know what I mean?
Definitely, yes.
And you could look at it even in Europe, dude. The places like Southern Italy, right? It's just like you can set it's science.
Yeah.
They have an absence of state help and they have a terrible economy. So therefore, the 'Ndrangheta and the Camorra out of Naples are super, super strong. Not so in places like Germany and Western European states where there's big drug traffickers, but like the line is very clear.
Yes,
they're always hiding. It's a shadow business.
Yeah,
that's why I say drug traffickers have to become criminals.
Yes,
because in Culiacan they're not criminals.
No, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
Everybody. I fucking feel like I'm in North Korea because like nobody wants to tell the truth, and it's everybody's kind of living under this dictatorship. Where we shall not speak.
You cannot say their name. Yeah, exactly.
Like it bothers me. Like it bothered me last night when we were told we couldn't film these guys, or when I was told like what I could say to my own cameraman.
Yeah,
I'm very much American. I don't like people telling me what to do.
Yeah, totally, man.
So I guess I won't be in the cartel. Yeah. But that's the problem is because I love drug dealing. Yeah. I think it's such a pure capitalistic. You need something, and like there's nobody getting in the way of that. But this is not really drug dealing in Mexico. Exactly. This is not free market. Yeah. This is not free market.
This is a monopoly, right?
Yes, it's a monopoly. Yeah, it's becoming unfair a little bit.
It's stated by death, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So look, God bless America. Luis, we're happy to have you in El Paso, dude.
Yeah.
Where I had the best time with you this week, didn't we, Brian?
It was really fun, guys. It was really
so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, you guys. You must follow this man. Subscribe to his YouTube channel, Luis Chaparro on YouTube. We're trying to get him up to 10,000 subs the week that we drop this. So go follow him. Plug your Instagram too.
It's Luis Culiacan, which is at Luis Kuryki.
And then anything else you want to plug? Do you have like a website or anything?
I have a website, which is my first initial, chaparro.com. It's basically a landing. There's nothing else but my stories right there. So.
Right. But you can find just Google him. You'll find, shitloads of articles, cool ass pieces that he's produced for Vice News. He did this one thing that I recognized, which was a video about the fentanyl cooks, the big cooking operations that happened in the peripheries of Culiacan, which we were driving around the other day. So, he's like the best of the best. Go check him out. And, we'll do this again very soon.
Fuck yes.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you, man.
Take it easy, you guys.
Bye-bye.